Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the next episode of Life's Black Belts. I am your host once again, Eric Alders, and it is my honor and privilege to be joined by my friend and 20-time UFC veteran, first-degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, martial arts school owner, and man, he's just an amazing guy and fighter that I can't really wait to let you guys all learn a little bit more about. The man behind the fighter. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you Cole Miller. How are you, sir?
I'm doing awesome. It's an honor to be on here with you.
Pleasure, man. So I see that, first of all, I want to welcome you to the first video podcast. I usually have only released the audio version, so this will be on YouTube first, but you're the first guy to go live on video with me, so that's cool.
Very cool.
And I see that you're at your new academy there, Miller Martial Arts in Bonaire, Georgia. Is that right?
That's right.
So is that about a year now that you have that school, or how long have you been there?
Yep. A year and 2 months, month and a half, something like that.
And how is that going for you so far?
It's going really good. We've got about 130 students. We're all martial arts. We don't do any like fitness specific or cardio specific types of classes. So 130 committed full martial arts students. I couldn't be happier with that. I'm ready to expand. I'm ready to get a bigger spot for sure.
Oh, that's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
I remember when you were getting ready to open a school, we're actually wrapping up our 12th year up here. And I kind of had the same thing. We did fitness programs for a couple of years, and it's difficult with all the gyms that are out there for $20 a month. So I figured I'd focus just on our forte of what we really specialize in with the, real kickboxing versus cardio kickboxing and so on.
Yeah. Go with what you know, right?
Exactly.
If I can get into like a really massive spot and I have a support personnel that wants to take on the duty of running a project like that, go ahead. But I'm dedicating my life to martial arts. So I want to focus just on those classes and mostly just on those students that are into what I'm into.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it must be an honor for the people in your area to be able to work with a UFC veteran and, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt from American Top Team. So, I mean, do people that are in your town know who you are right away? Has that been helping you having the name recognition from, being on TV and fighting in the UFC?
Right. I mean, I've been, fighting in the UFC for 10 plus years, and most of the people in my area already, were aware of the success that I've had in mixed martial arts, and they either know who I am already, or they soon find out very quickly and find out that this is the spot that they want to come to.
Excellent, man. So let's rewind a little bit. We'll get back to where your current status is right now. But let's let people know a little bit more about who you are. Because one of the ideas that I have with the podcast, as I was mentioning to you prior, is how martial arts and life kind of follow the same journey. I mean, there's days on the martial arts floor where you show up where you're tired, you're sore, and you don't want to be there, but you got to show up anyway. You're constantly humbled with your ego on the mat. You're constantly being shown how much you don't know. You have to keep picking yourself up and having the discipline to pursue the path to black belt. And I feel like life has the same kind of journey for us as well. These lessons are kind of like the stripes that we receive to our eventual life's black belt. So I know a lot of people know about Cole Miller, the fighter, but I'd like to introduce everyone to who Cole Miller is, the man. So why don't we start back? I know you're in Georgia right now. I believe that's where you were born as well. So why don't you take me back there for a minute? Tell me about a little bit of where you grew up.
I grew up all over the place. I was military brat. My mom was in the Navy. It's like, hey, can you turn that down? Mom was in the Navy. She was a single mom. Me and my brothers, me, Micah, and Nathan, we kind of went all around. She was originally from the area of Georgia that we live in currently. Basically, I was born in Augusta, but I never lived there.
Okay.
Don't ask me how that makes sense. Or my mom lived there for just a very, brief stint. But we lived in Chicago, North Chicago. I think there was a period where we were in Tennessee for a minute, like when I was young. Then we were in Jacksonville, Florida for a little while. Then my mom, she was deployed during Desert Storm. So
Oh, wow.
in that period, we came back to this part of Georgia to stay with. I was like with my dad and my grandparents. Like I said, my mom and my dad and then their parents were all from this middle Georgia area. And I came back here, and then my mom got stationed in Virginia Beach, then Maryland, then another spot in Maryland. So we were just always on the go. And then when she got out of the Navy when I was 13, we moved back to this area. And I was here for the time I was 13 till I was 21 before I moved to
Florida.
to top team. Yes.
I've actually been to Augusta. One of my best friends moved to Georgia also because his dad was a military guy, and he got taken down there because of that. Unfortunately, I didn't get to visit him while he was alive. He unfortunately got killed in a car accident, but I did have a chance to travel to Augusta a few times. It's a beautiful part of Georgia, and I've driven through different parts. I've been to Atlanta and Savannah and a few other parts, but a beautiful state as well.
Mm-hmm.
So out of the three boys in your household, what's the breakdown? Are you the oldest?
Yeah, I'm the oldest. Mike is 3 years younger than me. Nathan is 3 years younger than me. And we have a stepsister, and she is a year younger than Micah.
Okay. So growing up in your neighborhood and, bouncing around all over the place, what was life like growing up in your house and school? I've read a little bit about you over the years, knowing you, that I know you had your start in like baseball and stuff. Did that start like super young, or was that later in your like high school and stuff? I
was 3 or 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was your go-to thing.
That's what I did. Yeah. I mean, we were in our rambunctious house. I mean, 3 boys and another girl. And before my brother Nathan came along, me and Micah fought all the time. I mean, we were kids that grew up that were into anything related to like combat, like we had Army figurines. We watched G.I. Joes. We watched WWF wrestling. It was WWF back then.
I remember.
WCW. We watched Jean-Claude Van Damme, Steven Seagal movies. We watched professional boxing. Exactly. We saw the first UFC in '93 live. We were in a Ninja Turtle. We were just boys, and anything that was if you were into anything that was boyish, it was not like stuff today. We were into anything that had to do with violence or like a preface to violence.
Exactly, man. Dude, I grew up on the same stuff. Thundercats. I don't know if you watched that a lot. That was one of my favorites growing up. But
a little bit.
Ninja movies and Van Damme and all those guys, man. It was I was a
ninja or a Ninja Turtle for like 9 Halloweens. Like there was one thing I wanted to be. It was like just a destroyer of souls.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, so you're also like, you had like Nintendo, like me growing up a lot, playing Zelda and all those games. You know what I mean? So cool time growing up, man. So wait, how old are you right now?
I'm 34.
34. All right. So I got like 7 years. I'm 41. So I got like 7 years on you. But you remember that time, man. So being into all these martial art movies as a kid, you got into baseball, but you didn't get into martial arts at a younger age at all?
Yeah, like my dad, he had a little bit of martial arts experience in Taekwondo, but he was really into kickboxing. But we never really got to do that as kids. Like my mom didn't want us. We were already kind of rough kids, and she thought that martial arts would just make us like violent or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we also didn't have any money, so it was like you can pick one thing, and so you could pick martial arts or you could pick baseball. And I was going to pick baseball every time because it was just like the one thing that I loved. So we always kind of had like that choice, but she didn't want us really doing martial arts. She thought it was not good for us.
Yeah, it's still a stereotypical thing. I'm sure you run into it now as a school owner like I do, especially with moms. They think that their kids can become more violent by joining martial arts. No?
I don't think so. I think that kids like now, I think parents want their kids in it more. Mm-hmm. So at least in this area, I see more parents that want to prepare their kids. And I think that parents are afraid now. I think before they were afraid because like of what we just talked about. I think now they're afraid of their kid getting bullied and beat up and made into a Facebook or YouTube video or a kid being picked on and they can't defend themselves and then their kid commits suicide. I think that this is like what parents are really afraid of now. And I think that their kids or parents are more willing to do whatever it takes to prepare their children for for life, and you know, the hard stuff that it has along the way. And I think that they know martial arts is good for it. I think that picking the martial art and finding the right martial art and martial arts instructor is maybe like more of a struggle, and maybe like finding the time.
Right.
But I think that they're more worried about these things that will happen if they don't get their kids in martial arts than what will happen if they do get their kids in martial arts.
Yeah, well, I think that's a challenge.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, for a lot of parents that I speak to, I agree with you. It's definitely evolved over the last 12 years, where I heard it more often in the beginning that they thought their child would be violent. But I was going to say the opposite is true. It actually teaches you how to be humbler. I mean, as you do, I train with, in jiu-jitsu with some killers, and there's some of the nicest, most humble, gentle people that I know that just happen to, be deadly on the mats and so on. But it makes you a very humble, well-rounded person. But I agree with you. The challenge is the lack of understanding for parents on how martial arts compare with each other. So like in our town, there's a lot of Taekwondo schools, and not knocking that at all, but they're kind of known for putting out black belts in 2 or 3 years and kind of being one-trick ponies and really not being that good at self-defense. And a lot of parents don't know any different. They're running around, they see their kids get their belts, and they take a picture in their uniform, they look cute. They don't understand what's really important. You know what I mean? Which, as I believe, if you would agree, is that getting good at MMA, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, some like realistic, practical martial arts.
Yeah, absolutely. But I always tell people some martial arts is better than no martial arts. So like sometimes, because I still think that jiu-jitsu is cheap when you compare it to like baseball or basketball or travel softball. When you're talking about buying your kids new gear every year, it can get costly. But compared to other martial arts, jiu-jitsu can be kind of pricey, and it might not be in your price range, or it might not be like anywhere near you. So if that's the case, and you can't find the time to drive your child an hour out of town or 45 minutes, if that truly is the case, then man, get them involved in Taekwondo or karate or something like that. And if anything, it would be a good like precursor to get your kid into. It'll help give them coordination. It'll help teach them like discipline, respect, honor, courage, give them some integrity and things like that. Give them goals to look for, keep their minds in something that's kind of positive and not something so negative. So, but I do agree with you that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, mixed martial arts, these things are more practical. They have to do with real life fighting. But like you were saying, not knocking, Taekwondo or karate or anything like that. Like some martial arts is better than none. So you don't got jiu-jitsu, you don't got wrestling. Wrestling's very cheap also and affordable for if there's any parents out there that they can't afford any martial arts. Like the $99 a month is maybe too expensive or something like. Man, get your kid involved in wrestling. Wrestling tournaments are like $15 if you wrestle or like a USA wrestling tournament. If you're wrestling for your school, it's almost nothing. You just got to pay for wrestling shoes and headgear, and they supply like the singlets. Like get your kid in something that helps them learn to count on themselves. Right. Because teamwork is great. They should learn how to work inside a team environment, work well with others. They need to learn how to lead. They need to learn how to be a follower. And I didn't wrestle growing up. So let me just say that. Same. First. So I'm pushing something that I did not do because I know and I see the types of people that have wrestled and what it can get them prepared for. So wrestle, get in karate, get in Taekwondo. But if you have the ability to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing, or any of like the key, I would say, fundamental martial arts that exist in mixed martial arts, and put them in it. Absolutely.
Well, I find the same thing. I did not wrestle in high school. Wish I did, but having taught for a while and getting some guys in like the amateur MMA ring, people that have wrestling background are some of the easiest people to transition into MMA because they're used to the consistent, tough practices, cutting weight, competing in front of a crowd and what that feels like for their anxiety. And a lot of people may not realize how adrenaline dumps come in for that first couple experiences with a new fighter, what it's like being, in a cage with, a couple thousand people watching you. So people that have wrestled, I found, is a nice transition for them. So I would 100% agree with that. And, having been in jiu-jitsu now, I guess I'm in like 7 years, just got my purple. I love it so much. It just makes me realize, man, I wish I did wrestling in high school. I probably would have also loved it, and it would have helped me even more where I'm at now. Because whenever I go against the good wrestlers, they're tough to deal with, even with jiu-jitsu as a background, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So rewinding back to baseball, that was a big part of what you did. What was the position that you played for? And then as you moved up, did you make it to the higher levels of baseball in school and college?
Yeah, like I guess when I was a kid, I was like infielder.
Okay.
I played like second base when I was like little, and I got into like high school years, and I really liked playing outfield, and I started to get a pretty decent cannon for an arm. I was never fast, and outfielders are supposed to be fast, but I had good instincts. Like when the ball would leave the pitcher's hand, I could already start running in the direction that I knew the ball would be hit, based off of the stance of the batter, based off of the position of the catcher, based off of I could see what pitch was being called, or I knew what pitches the pitcher would like to call, and if he placed it where the catcher was, I knew where the ball could get hit based off of I was already analyzing things like this at an early age. So to make up for my lack of speed, like somebody built like me is supposed to be fast too. I was slow. I mean, like a 5-second 40-yard dash. I had no muscles to power my little legs, you know.
Right.
But I could already be taken off toward the ball, and I like to dive for the ball. I like to get nasty. So, you know, I started playing outfield and played high school baseball, and I had the opportunity to go get some pretty decent scholarships at like some good junior colleges, but I chose to go D1, which I wasn't really ready for. I was probably going to redshirt, but I had a relationship with the coach of that school, and I knew if I went there, I would be steered in the right direction and groomed, and it just wasn't the right choice. I was burned out on baseball. I probably should have went JUCO, but I went D1 3 weeks into fall practice. I just went to the coach's office. Was like, man, I can't do this anymore. I flunked that first year of college like 6 weeks in. That whole thing where like they don't take attendance, don't listen to that, because I literally got straight Fs for missing 4 classes in all my classes. Like that was real. Like I heard, some places they don't really take attendance. It's not that big a deal. I got a thing in my mailbox 6 weeks in that said you now have automatic Fs. Like it didn't matter what letter or grade I had. Like I got straight Fs because I missed 4 classes in that semester in all my classes. It was irreversible. Like I went to talk to the dean or whatever, and they were like, no, it's done. So I just used the dorm as basically an apartment for the rest of the semester because there was nothing to do.
Sure, man. I also failed my first semester of college, but it was because I pledged fraternity the same exact time. I probably should have taken a semester off and got used to it, but I had like
you had fun. I didn't.
I had fun. Yeah, man. I wasn't sleeping very much, and I ended up sleeping in class a little too much. But then I turned it around and got my act together.
Same.
So was it like when you were burnt out, having loved it your whole life, was it because you're in college and you were missing out on having a social life that was kind of conflicting you a little bit, or what kind of turned the page for you?
Not at all. I think that like just playing all the time, like my dad kind of putting it on me hard. Sure that he meant well. Sure he just wanted me to be committed and strive and all the opportunity, blah, blah, blah. Either way, he kind of made me not like it. And it was just such a different experience. Even though I wanted to play ball all day, every day, when you actually go and then you get, whatever, like you just made like some wrong choices, like your student advisor told you to take the wrong classes, even though you told them that you're on the baseball track. They asked you what you want to do. They gave me a 15-hour load instead of a 12-hour load. They gave me an 8 a.m. class when I had to be in the weight room at 5:30 or 5 or 5:30, and then you had to be on the field twice a day. I basically just got the wrong kind of schedule for what that person on the athlete track should have had, and so this kind of accelerated the burning out process, and that's why it only took me 3 weeks to go in, because I couldn't even make it on the field like I was supposed to in 2 times a day, and the weightlifting at 5:30 in the morning, and going to it just was way too much. Like I said, I probably should have went junior college something first.
What did you go to college for? I never even asked you that part. Well, what'd you major in?
nothing. Make parents leave you alone.
Uh-huh.
Like that's what
Yeah,
everybody says.
exactly.
You
Yeah.
am I, what do you call that? Like the decade I was born generation,
Mhm.
like they're like, you got to go to college, you got to
Mhm.
go to college, got to go to college. And I went to college, preparatory, high school too. They didn't really give me any
Yeah.
options. And like, you can't,
It's not for everybody. It's
and
not.
like going to like a school like I went to, it's like academics are stressed, which is good, not good. I don't care. But like, you can't teach somebody to want to be something. And like, I don't feel like I got really any exposure to anything that was interesting to me,
Mhm.
like nothing that was interesting to me. And parents try to point you in the direction that they wish that they took, and
Right.
maybe not what's best for you. So I didn't find anything interesting that was ever put to me except for athletics, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, I felt the same way, dude. I went because it was the thing to do, but I had no idea what I wanted to major in, bounced all over the place. It felt like high school part two. I sat there just going like, man, I want to, because I've been to martial arts since I'm 8. I taught at around
Mm-hmm.
17, 18. And I was like, I just want to open up my own school one day. And I ended up leaving in my last year. I think I got like 80 or 90 credits left, never finished it. But, it worked out for me, thankfully, pursuing this. Um, Going back to growing up, you got 2 brothers. I have an older brother, so I know what it was like for us growing up. You guys close growing up, and you guys, I know Mike is there, so you guys are still tight. But you guys always close growing up as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like we fought a lot. I mean, a lot,
Okay,
like more than you and your brother and any brother combined. Like we were in the ER all the time. And when I
oh
say
shit,
fought, like
but you fought,
we were,
fought.
we were fighting,
Damn.
and we were doing stuff we shouldn't have been doing. I mean, like, like, oh, they knew it. They knew us by our first names at the ER. You hear like that kind of cliche thing, like, but it's not really true. But you're just trying to stress that, like, they knew what. No, they literally knew. They knew what was up. We
Right.
came into the hospital all the time, messed up, broken bones,
Oh
lacerations.
man,
I mean, just jacked up. We had some issues,
it sounds like it, man. So
Um,
did you guys? Is that what started the? Who got into martial arts first?
mm, I guess I did, but
Okay.
we we were both, when I say into it, like I said, we were watching this or watching
Right.
that. We both like knew what was up, but Micah got into wrestling first, and then I started training that semester after I flunked out. Like I flunked out, and then my friend came to where I worked, and I hadn't seen him in a couple of years, and he told me, "Oh, I'm training mixed martial arts, and this is 2003." And I actually knew what that meant, mixed martial arts, because I was like I was a fan. Like I knew, I
Mhm.
was watching Shudo fights, pancrase fights. I had that old T1 landline at that college that I had just flunked
Right.
out of, and I was downloading all types of old fights on LimeWire, and
Oh man, LimeWire. That's a throwback.
yeah. And so I knew what was going on. We were watching UFC and Pride fights in my household, with my dad. And it was like a family bonding kind of thing. And so
Mhm.
then I found out this guy was coming up 2 nights a week in Macon, where we were at. And I went to check it out. And I actually liked it a lot. And I couldn't train like right then because like my dad and everybody was grilling me about all Fs. And I didn't have any other options, or none that were really. I would have done anything to just like make my parents not ride me.
Right, I got you. Get
I
off my
didn't,
back.
I was not a man. Like I was not willing to say, this is what I'm doing. Like I would just, whatever will make them leave me alone,
Mhm.
I will do that. So I stayed in college, even though I didn't want to be in college. So I went and I was like, I gotta do college. I can't come train right now. And they were like,
Right.
you know what that is. When those
Yeah.
guys come in and say that, oh, they just can't do it, you'll never see those guys again.
Mhm.
And I just said, let me get this semester to make up for the last semester, and then I'll be back. And they're like, okay, blah, blah, blah. Like they never expected to see me again.
Right.
So I made straight A's that next semester, got my parents to ease up off of my back, and then I went back and started training.
And the school that you started with was pure MMA, or was it jiu-jitsu, or
Yeah,
where'd you start?
MMA. MMA.
Okay.
He was a self-taught grappler. His name's Cam McCarg. He's a professional fighter. Um, he was like had a gymnastics and kind of like Wing Chun background. He had a martial arts instructor, but like he learned a lot off of videos, a couple private lessons that he had here and there. But he was just like an anomaly, and he only taught us like anything that was applicable at the time for fighting. So like we would do submission grappling only. He had no rank in any kind of grappling martial art.
Right.
You know, and I trained with him for 2.5 years. You know.
Did you get involved with competition underneath him, or that came later?
Yeah, I fought 5 months into training.
5 months. How did you get into that so quickly, man? That seems like a short term.
I think that I was kind of a natural to an extent. Okay. And when we would train, we would just train like 7:30 until 12:30 at night. Like literally that late, you know, because he was renting space from like a fitness or like a Gold's Gym type of place. We had like a little room, and it was like, you know, these places are often 24/7. So we would stay as long as he would stay, and he liked to train. So we would train. And so we would train, you get tired, you rest, you know, you BS with the guys, you drink your Gatorade, you're pounding it, you know, story time. Then you get back on the mat and you go again. It wasn't like it was good and it was bad, but it didn't have the structure for what you see a lot of places now. And that structure is good, you know, and because most of the population needs a little bit, and they can't spare 6 hours of their time to train to fight. And most people don't want to fight. They just want to train. So they need to come like 2 times a week, 3 times a week, train fewer moves more often. But that was not me. I learned by doing. We would be on the mat. My coach liked sparring. He liked going live. He liked tapping us out. He liked while you're training, walking you through it, not stopping. There was no form or class structure. We didn't let me show you this move. You guys drill it 1,000 times. Then we do the next one, then the next one. Then we roll 3 5-minute rounds, and that's it. No, we trained. And then while he's tapping you out, he's explaining to you how to get out of it. And then you kind of just keep the flow going and going. And then when we would spar, it would be like that too. He'd take it very easy on us, but he used us as training partners, and he didn't. I mean, it got to the point where later he'd be trying to kill us, but he built us to that stage. But it was more of like a kind of like a fight team. It wasn't, and I didn't know that going in. I didn't know any better that there was another way to train. But that's how we trained, and so that's how I got good as fast as I got, was because it's all about repetition.
Absolutely,
and reps and time on the mat. Well, when you're putting 4 or 5 hours a night on the mat, that's how I was ready in 5 months. I wasn't good, okay, but I fought as an amateur, which in Georgia meant same rules as pro, except for 4-minute round, and you couldn't throw elbows in Georgia. But I fought in other states where you could throw elbows too. And we did not have these special shin guards. We did not have 7-ounce gloves. We did not have knockdown rules. Like, it was MMA. You just did not get paid. So I fought like that for a year and a half, and had 10 fights like that.
So how did your body hold up training 4 or 5 hours a day? And you said you got burnt out from baseball, but you didn't. Did this reinvigorate a new passion in you for athletics? It seems like you doubled down now.
Yeah, well, this was different. This was something that I was always interested in and was a fan of, and I really, really liked it. And it was new, and I was always super intrigued with jiu-jitsu and grappling and submissions and things like that. So I kind of got into what I was always wanting to do but never really could.
Right. And
so, I was just passionate about it, and that's what drove me. And I just wanted to fight, man. Like, my whole life, from the time I was a kid, I just wanted to fight. Like, combat of some kind would probably have been the only route for me. And so I fought twice in one night that night. And I fought like 4 times like that in these like kind of tournaments, but it was just little 4-man tournaments, not like an 8 or 16 man. I wish I would have got to do something like that. But.
How did your family react to this when you said you wanted to be a cage fighter?
Well, first off, nobody wanted to be a cage fighter. You wanted to cage fight.
Right.
You couldn't be a cage fighter. There was no money in fighting. So you couldn't be a cage fighter. You could cage fight.
You could fight just for the hell of it. Yeah.
My dad was skeptical because he had wrestled and he had kickboxed, and he just like didn't know anything about where I was training or who with or how someone could be good at something in a couple months. And he was kind of not thrilled, I think, until after I fought. And then my mom, she kind of didn't really want that for me either. I think because like they think because you can be good at other things that you should do those other things.
Like, why hurt yourself? Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm sure it was all in a good place, but I mean, knowing what I know now, like I'm just going to tell my kid to do what he wants to do. Like, that's it.
And
I'm not saying my parents made a mistake or anything like that. Like I said, I'm sure it's a good spot. You want your kid to not struggle in the way that you struggle, but we're talking about it, you know, like I'm just going to tell my kid, hey, oh, you're good at this? Oh, you like this? All right, well, let's push all the cards forward. Like I don't really buy into the backup plan. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's a good idea, like at all. Like if you're doing something that only has like you can only do for a little while, or that you need to put all your time into being passionate about this thing to magnify your opportunity to excel in this thing that you're passionate about, well, you don't need to be doing something else. Like if college will always be there, well, then what's the hurry in going, you know?
It's it's same with martial arts. If you kind of like just come in and out of the school casually, you're going to have a certain experience, but when you dive into it and you dedicate to it, you find that's when you really excel. And the same, I think, is what you're saying goes through with life as well. You find a passion, something you want to do, you know, tunnel vision, dedicate yourself, put the work in and make it happen, man.
Yeah. Like
it sounds like that's what you did.
This area of Georgia, I'm like, we have the middle part of Georgia, Macon, Perry, Warner Robins, Bonnet, like this little area. Jiu-jitsu has been here, but it's not Atlanta. It's not a metropolitan. Okay. But I'm going to indoctrinate this place, and we are going to have, I'm telling you, like, I'm going to have like a homeschool program where kids train jiu-jitsu twice a day, and they do the mandatory 4 hours a day of learning or whatever they're supposed to learn. They're going to do that at my school.
That's amazing.
Like, I don't believe in, like, I hear about these kids, he's 16 or whatever, this guy, and he's dropping out of high school to pursue jiu-jitsu. And I hear people criticizing. I'm like, yeah, that's what he should be doing. Like, there's no time limit on education. Colleges don't only accept people who are in their prime of 18 to 22. They accept people who have life experience. They accept people who pass tests. Like, that's it. There's not a time limit on being educated. So there is a time limit on pursuing athletic endeavors or artistic endeavors. There's a time limit on that. Now, I understand, like, people, well, how are you going to provide for yourself? Okay, I get it. Well, go get a job that's low paying, that allows you to, like, pursue your passion. This is what I'm saying, you know? So I'm going to have like a school thing inside of my school, like an educational system. So kids and parents and kids that want to do jiu-jitsu, they will come to school in my school, and then they will do jiu-jitsu in my school.
I think it's a great idea. And I think the world will be better off with good quality martial arts and also different approaches. Not everyone's made for, you know, school, college, you know, take your SATs, get pushed into the world. You know, everyone's an individual. And I'm sure you see that a lot as an instructor. You could teach the same class, but you have to break things down for different people because everyone learns differently. You know what I mean?
I know that I'm not an outlier. I know that there are a high percentage of people are like me that they had not been exposed to something that was for them, or they were not really passionate about anything specific, and they weren't ready for college, and college is not the right choice right out of high school for a lot of people. Like, why would you assume debt on something that you don't know that you want to do?
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense. If you are not passionate about school, then why would you go? You're going to make subpar grades toward a field that you are not interested in.
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't make sense to me.
Oh, I have tons of friends that have graduated and then went back to, computer programming, changed careers 4 times. Cause again, you said they just go in and do it because their parents told them they should do it. And then they're in debt for the rest of their life. So I wholeheartedly agree with that, man. So I wanted to ask you, when you fought in the ring, 5-6 months into it, what was that walk like that first time out?
Like it was what I should be doing.
Yeah, it just felt like at home.
It was not jittery. I didn't have nerves my first fight. I felt prepared. I felt like, wow, my coach is right here with me. He would not want to show his face if he did not think that I could win. So I should think that I should win.
Okay.
See, it was a very logical way of thinking. I didn't overthink. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk in this ring and we are going to fight. And then I will walk out. And then I will walk back again and fight again. And then my day will be done. And like that was it.
And how did it go for you the first time out?
Crushed.
Yeah.
Crushed this guy in like 2.5 minutes.
Stand up or submission?
Yeah. Threw a couple head kicks at him really, really hard. Body kicks really hard. And I was just forward, like young, 19. Too dumb to be afraid, or too dumb to know that I wasn't any good either, So I just like throwing hard head kicks to knock his head into the ninth row to kill, And then after like I threw a few of those, I went to throw another one while I was walking forward. And while he was moving backward, he kind of like tripped as I threw like a body kick, it like hit him in the chest, but he kind of was walking backwards, so it made him fall. And he was like in like an open guard laying down, and I was just standing above him, and I just started raining down punches.
Dropping bombs.
Raining. Like 50 unanswered.
Damn.
Like him just like covering up and boom, boom, boom. And just like the last couple I hit him with, like knocked his head back, and he made the like kind of sound when the referee kind of asked him, you want to continue? He made like one of these types of responses. And that fight was over.
And when your hand got raised, how'd that feel, man? That just solidified everything you were feeling walking out?
No, I was like, I didn't feel anything. I was just so eager to fight the second fight of that night. Remember, it was a tournament.
Right, okay. So like, you knew it wasn't done yet.
I had a goal. That goal was not to win one fight and then see what happens the next fight. My goal was to win, and the job was only halfway done. It was not done. So I just got my hand raised, jogged back into the locker room, sat there and waited for the next fight.
And then your second fight, did that go well for you as well?
Yeah, I threw a couple head kicks. Head kicks, reoccurring theme. And then the guy kind of took me down. I had no wrestling, and I triangle choked him in like under a minute. And that kind of solidified everything.
Okay.
I was like, all right, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to do. I'll do things that I hate doing if that's what it takes to just be able to do this.
Now, this is your entry into amateur, or when did you transition to pro? Was that in Georgia still?
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, I was fighting amateur, just not getting paid, but same rules, fighting grown men, weight classes. It's kind of like in that period between NHB and MMA. This is 2003.
Oh, yeah.
So
fresh.
The crossover was kind of happening at that point.
Right. Exactly.
There were still guys fighting that fought in the NHB era, but there was like more like a new wave. People still had specialties, but there was fewer pancrase fights happening, and more like regulated 4-ounce gloves, no headbutts or anything like that, fighting. And I fought like that for a year and a half, and then I turned pro, and I fought a year as a pro. So I trained 2.5 years in Middle Georgia before I moved to South Florida.
So where did the transition come from of you getting to American Top Team?
There was a fighter, Charles McCarthy. He had not fought in UFC yet, but he had been training in South Florida with Freestyle Fighting Academy, FFA, with Marcos, David Avalon, Jorge Masvidal was training with them at the time. World-class grapplers, wrestling background, submission wrestling guys.
Right.
And he moved to Georgia with a girl that he was dating at the time, and they had moved to Atlanta. Now we're not near Atlanta. Everybody thinks that Georgia's like this big.
No.
Georgia's a massive state, and there are things besides Atlanta in it. You know, it takes you like 7 hours to go from one end to the other. It's not a small state. And so you're in the center. Atlanta is like 2 hours north of where I lived. But he was looking more for sparring partners. He wasn't looking for trainers, if you will. And so he got on the forum, the MMA.tv forum, and was just like, hey, Atlanta area, my coach got on there. If this is interesting to you, I train in Griffin, which is like an hour out of Atlanta. We train in Griffin 3 nights a week, in Macon, where I live, 2 nights a week. So 1 hour from Atlanta, 2 hours from Atlanta. And so the guy, Charles McCarthy, he bounced around a couple schools, trained with some guys. They're good guys, but he wanted somebody who he could train with hard every night. And he came to my coaches, and we had our little very close-knit, almost all amateur except for me and my coach. That was it, the only guys that were pro at the time. But we had a stable of good amateur fighters. And he trained with my coach, and he was like, all right, I can learn from you, but we can also train, and I can get good rounds. And he trained there, and he lived there for a year or something like that. And then he moved back to Florida. So I had developed a good relationship with him. He brought me to FFA, trained there, went back. And then when I went back to Georgia, he was like changing teams. He had gone to Top Team. He says, you got to come check out Top Team now. And I had a fight that was in Key West, and ain't nobody got no money to fly.
Right.
So
yeah. That's a drive.
I drove, and I stopped in Coconut Creek, and then I wasn't like training because it was like fight week for me, but I grappled with a couple of the purple belts, and the boxing coach held mitts for me for just a little bit. Howard Davis Jr. You know, love him. You know, rest in peace.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was just in awe about all the guys that were K1 fighters, Pride fighters, UFC fighters that I was seeing around the place. I was like kind of fanboying out.
Right.
But getting to train with a couple guys, or just even seeing them train, was just epic for me. So I fought that fight, and then I went back to Georgia, and I was like, all right, ready to move, ready to do whatever it takes.
So did they make an offer to join the team, or did you like proposition them and say, hey, what do I got to do to train here? Or how'd that go down?
Yeah, like Charles kind of had my back, and he was like, hey, I'm vouching for this guy. I was taking him under my wing in Georgia. Like, can we get him to train with the pros? And Top Team was one of the best gyms in the world at that point, but it was not as big as what it is now.
Right.
And when I say big, what I really mean, I guess, is like organized, professional, organized, and big, as in the size and amount of people that were leaving where they live to come to it to train. So I kind of got in the door at a good spot, and I think it was kind of an easy sell because I could be a punching bag for some of the better guys. Because you don't want to have wars all the time.
Of course.
You want to have a guy that you can beat up on, but who's still game. And I was that.
Now, when you first started at that time, still kind of early on, did they have the structure where you had your striking and your, wrestling and jiu-jitsu and strength and conditioning, and that all lined up and laid out, and like when you go through a fight camp, or did that develop a little later?
You mean after I joined American Top Team?
Yeah, because I'm imagining when you're in Georgia, you said your coach was good, but he kind of learned a lot of through seminars on his own. Now you're with a group of world champions with
So
Lauzon and everyone there. So did that structure then come at American Top Team where they really controlled your approach to training?
So I would go in the morning because I was young, so like I could recover good. I'd get beat up, but I could recover. I go train gi in the mornings with Pahumpa, my jiu-jitsu coach. And Laborio, every now and then, he would teach it too. And so then whatever morning class was set up, it was usually for the pros, but I would go train gi with the regular hobby jiu-jitsu guys, like the guys who have that lunch break or morning break from their work, whatever. And then I would do whatever pro training there was. So if it was sparring, I'd do sparring. If it was hitting pads with Coach Howard, I'd hit pads with Coach Howard. If it was wrestling practice, it was wrestling practice. And then at nighttime, I would kind of do the strength and conditioning, but it was still not a major focus of mine. I was being exposed to skills like you were mentioning. I went from like a hybrid fighter who kind of knew how to mix things to being at a place where I was already good at mixing things. I needed to get skill work to improve
Specialized,
the individual martial arts and combat sports. So I was like getting to train with man, like Howard really took my striking to the next level and training in the gi with Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys. That's what I was really doing at that point. And I would do strength and conditioning maybe two times a week, 45 minutes to an hour, you know. But I was young. That was like what I would do to finish my day or, you know, just to start my evenings.
Well, I mean, you're surrounded by just some of the best coaches in the world down there. I mean, Pahumpa and Laborio and Conan, all these guys from the Carlson Gracie background, Howard Davis Jr., you know, Olympian. And I mean, you just have some of the best coaches in the world. I mean, you must have seen a huge improvement in your skill set, I would imagine, in a very short period of time. Did they, how far out after being with ATT did they book your first fight? And was it a local fight or did you go to UFC?
McCarthy was still acting as like my mentor and manager. Okay. So, and they didn't do anything. McCarthy, I trained with the top team. I was still giving them percentage of my purse, but McCarthy was kind of like my manager. And because I already had 16 fights when I got to them, I was still fighting all the time. I fought 10 times in 12 months. Like I was getting it. I was getting it and I was smashed up. I was fighting with broken bones. I was getting cut in one fight and fighting 6 weeks later. I was putting on that schedule because I wanted to fight. I didn't care about the UFC. First off, UFC was never even a dream of mine. I wanted to fight in Shudo. They didn't have 145. I walked around at 150 pounds while I was lifting weights and eating protein. You know what I'm saying? Like it was, and they had gotten rid of the lightweight weight class later.
Right.
You know, I didn't, can I cuss?
Oh, absolutely, man. Yeah.
I didn't give a shit. I didn't give a shit about the UFC. Like it wasn't even on my radar. Like I looked at these guys that were UFC fighters and I kind of like held them in a higher regard and respected them. I wanted to be the Japanese Shudo world champion. Okay. That was it for me. That was the end goal, end game for me. Didn't not care about UFC. Pride was not doing 163 pounds yet. And when they did do it, I was still nowhere near 163. So I never aimed for that. You know what I'm saying? These guys that were fighting in Shudo or had fought in Shudo, they were more iconic to me than UFC and Pride fighters because that was what I wanted to do.
Right. Well, that's what you were following more at the time. And I mean, Pride and all the Japanese MMA at that time was huge.
It was huge, you know? And so I knew where I wanted to go. I was watching fighters more in my weight class or close to my weight class. And that's where I wanted to do and who I wanted to be. So that, I think, was my first fight that Top Team booked when I fought in Shudo against the champ at the time. But the only catch was it was a non-title fight because I was a last-minute replacement. And so I didn't even have a passport. I was in Georgia trying to recover from a fight that I had, and I was all jacked up. And, excuse me, 8 days notice, had to expedite a passport, borrowed money, borrowed the $250 or whatever it cost to expedite it, and flew over there, got there the night before weigh-ins. And you know, your hours are all swapped up too because they're almost 12 hours ahead. They're 10 hours ahead or something, I think. And I ended up cutting weight the next day, made the 143.3, 65 kilograms, even though the weight was at 66 kilograms. I cut all that weight the next day with Clay Guida, and then I fought the world champ in a non-title fight on the semifinal, which means like co-main event.
Right.
It was dope. And I I went the distance with him. I was a blue belt in jiu-jitsu at the time, but I was like 8-1 or 8-1, 9-1, something like that. Only had a decision loss from the old team I had trained with. And I thought I won the fight too. Like I was fighting a Japanese guy, world champ in Japan.
Right.
And
On his turf. Yeah.
Yeah. I for sure, I feel like won the first round. I did all this damage. I nearly dropped him. Like back then they had the knockdown rule. Shudo had a knockdown rule, standing 8.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had a catch, which was like the equivalent of a knockdown if you got a submission. And anything that was like close that made them freak out or had to like really work to escape was called a catch. And it was like a -1, like a knockdown would be.
Right.
You understand?
Mm-hmm.
So I nearly dropped him in the first round, like where his heels, like his butt was lower than his knees. You understand? Like it never hit the mat, but like
right, he wobbled. Yeah.
Like his butt fell below his knees, and he was like in a sumo crouch to stay up. Like he was wobbling backwards,
right. Catching himself.
Caught himself. Yeah, up against the ropes, whatever. And you can see that fight on Fight Pass as well. That's super cool. They I don't know how they got Shudo rights or whatever, but you can see that fight on Fight Pass if you have Fight Pass. And then the second round, I hit him with like a hip bump or hip heist sweep, but he posted, and then I threw up a triangle choke. And he pulled me on top of him to do like a throw the legs over escape, and they didn't call catch for me, you know? So, but even after that, he dominated the third round because I was gassed because I was not training for a fight. He broke my nose with some ground and pound that was vicious. He was a great ground and pound artist. Ground and pounded a lot of jiu-jitsu black belts and put them to sleep. And he deviated my septum. I had to have surgery for it later. It was non-cosmetic. It was straight here, but really jacked up on the inside. And that was it for me. I was like, all right, I walked away a winner in my eyes. Like I was like, first off, I feel like I won the fight. You could argue either way, but it was very competitive. And I was like, I'm only a blue belt. I'm like 9-2 at this point, 10-2, 8-2, whatever I was. I was like, I'm just getting started.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've only been fighting pro a year right now. I'm going to destroy fools, you know? And then Shudo didn't have me back for a rematch or anything like that. And now we're just like, on to the next one. Let's get back to work.
Yeah, man. That's like you went out and went to a world, you know, one of their top guys and held your own with them. That must have felt incredible.
He was the top guy in the world. He was ranked #1 in the world at 145 pounds.
Man. So you came back from that just like fierce, you know, after you got your nose fixed up and ready to take it to the next level. Yeah,
absolutely.
And this whole time you're just enjoying the Florida lifestyle, or is it just, I mean, are you training so much that you can't even enjoy?
I never did. I'm not saying I didn't have a fun time every now and then.
Yeah.
I went to college for 4.5 years. I attended 5 parties, maybe. Right. And when I attended parties, it meant like maybe have a sip of beer. I cared about one thing, fighting. I'd show up to class with stitches, black eyes. I had teachers that would meet with me concerned for my safety because they had no idea what I was doing. It's not their business to know what I'm doing, you know, but they would stop me and try to counsel me, you know. Like I was fighting. I was traveling every 6 weeks like clockwork, fighting. And then when I got to South Florida, I was fighting. Like I never immersed myself in the party culture, if you will. I wasn't.
Well, obviously it turned out to be a good decision for you. You know what I mean?
I never got into, I don't like electronic music. You know, I don't hate the beach. I just don't really like the beach. And I never really got into recreational drugs or anything like that. So I'd drink every now and then if I was partying. That was it. You know, that was it for me.
So when you came back, how long was it from that fight in Japan to your next step of getting into your UFC career where it wasn't even a goal of yours? So if that wasn't a goal of yours, how does that come about?
I don't know, man. I think I started taking some fights at 50 and 55 because it was just easier to get them in America than fights at 45. And because I kind of solidified myself at like going the distance with Takeshi Inoue, that kind of put me on the map. And I think that maybe the next step was to fight the guys at that high level, but I would not be getting paid necessarily to fight like super high level guys. So I started fighting at 50 and 55 against guys that had winning records for sure, guys that were very good, but were not that next tier. So I wasn't running through nobody, but to get me good, tough guys fighting at the higher weight class that exposed me to more fights and more opportunities. Just wait till this thing.
That's all good, man. No worries, man. Get your business.
I'm not picking it up. I don't ever pick up the phone here. Like my girlfriend, Jara, she's the program director here. She picks up the phone. And I mean, that.
It's good to know your role, man.
What's the one rule? You always pick up the phone, right? I don't ever pick it up. Like, we got a voicemail. Leave a recording.
Exactly.
We'll be happy to get back to you. I don't have better things to do than talk to my potential customers, but I've got other things. Like, look what I'm doing right now. I don't want to pick up the phone and talk to them. Or sometimes I'm out. You know what it's like being, you got to immerse yourself in like your local environment, So like I'm just out and about doing stuff during the day or planning in very important things.
Yeah, no doubt, man.
All right. There's the voicemail. So I don't know. I fought a couple guys. I fought in the AFC, which is like ran by the promoter Carlos Diaz, who trained at Top Team at the time. I fought in the very final show before they kind of stopped that, before they reignited it just 2-3 years ago or whatever. And it was at FAU, and I won that fight. And then I went and fought in Indiana. Had a couple fights fall through. Like I was supposed to fight Miguel Torres at one point. I was supposed to fight Dustin Hazlett at one point. And that fight didn't happen because I got the opportunity to go on The Ultimate Fighter.
Right.
And they had that tryout. They had a tryout. And I went to it. I was very experienced. They were bringing back the lightweight season. That was what it was. Or bringing back the lightweights. So that's what this season was. They were trying to reinvest into the lightweight weight class, which they had diffused. They got rid of it. There was no more lightweights. It was 170 and up. And they were trying to reinvigorate and make fans of the lighter weight class. And 155 was going to be it. So they had brought back this lightweight season. I was 152 pounds. But what could it hurt? It's good. I'd make some good money. And I could try to bulk up. It wasn't happening. And then that's how I got into The Ultimate Fighter. And I went to this tryout. And I really only went to talk to the producer since I could get face-to-face. Like, my skills were already vouched for because I had met – this is the answer to your real question. I'd met Joe Silva. I was fighting in his home state in Virginia against a local guy that was heavily, put up. He was getting some push. And I won that fight, and I showed a lot of grit in doing it. And so I got to meet him face to face, and we were just talking, and I kind of already knew that my skills needed to get leveled up. But I got his number to kind of just keep him updated with how my career went. Every single time I'd win a fight, won this fight, won this fight, won this fight. And so I was kind of texting him and letting him know these things, because it wasn't like social media was so prevalent back then where these guys could really stay on top of it. So I had McCarthy, Cole Miller wins again on the threads or the forums or whatever you call them. And I would text Joe Silva. And so he was like, listen, I know that your skills are good. We're doing a trial in South Florida. Go and meet with the producers. Well, I still had to do like the tryout process, but we already knew that I was going to go through it. So tapped out Manny Reyes Jr. in the grappling portion, hit some pads, and then sat down with the producers. And I got to the next cut. So you go to Vegas, you get your MRI, you get your blood work done, and you do a second set of interviews. And then I made it past that cut and got onto the show.
Nice, man. So that was season 5, right?
Correct.
Jens Pulver, BJ Penn were the
season.
The season, man. You were on there. I was looking that up earlier with like Nate Diaz, Joe Lauzon, Gray Maynard, right?
Yeah, Manny Camburian, Matt Wyman,
wow,
Corey Hill. I mean, there were real beasts. Like Brian Garrity was ranked at 145 and like top 10 in the country, but he was fighting he was kind of stepping up, but Rob Emerson was dope. I mean, there were straight killers on that season. Like, we had every other season after the Ultimate Fighter finale, 1 year later, they'd have 1, 2, 1, or none. We had like 6, 7 guys go 5-year plus careers.
Right.
We had 6 guys do 10 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, we had a season unlike any other.
Yeah, man. You guys got guys that are still fighting and some of the best known people, to date, man.
Yeah.
So that must have just been a huge boost for your name recognition and career to be on TV. And
right.
I assume that was definitely a moment for your family to realize that you followed the right path and you made it, man.
Yeah, I made it.
I mean, made it. You're on the UFC. You financially getting the money that you want, and I know that doesn't work out that way when you're splitting it up with everybody. But hey, listen, as a kid watching the show,
I never thought that I was
gonna.
I never thought I'd make more. I made $8,000 a show and $8,000 to win for my first UFC fight. I never in a million years thought I would make that kind of money. And I got the knockout of the night in my first fight, so I got $31,000. I was like,
dude, that's incredible, man.
I'm rich,
Yeah.
I'm rich as hell right now.
That's incredible. And you had, I wrote this down before, 4 submission of the nights as well.
Yeah. I got 1 knockout and 4 submissions of the night. Yeah.
And you've been in you were in the UFC for your 10
years,
you said?
Yeah.
Now what's going on now? Are you actively fighting with the UFC or no?
I'm taking a sabbatical right now. Like,
focusing on the business.
I fought my last fight on my contract, and then there's like a right to match agree clause or whatever. Like, it's like a free agency status. It's not that complicated.
Gotcha.
But I can go somewhere else, but I'll just window shop or whatever. I just don't care about fighting right now. I'm very close to. I was actually wanting to come back this year. I'm having surgery on Tuesday on my shoulder. My labrum was trash. I tore it, and it needs to be reattached. Otherwise, the shoulder will come out of socket, they said. So they said I could train forever with, like, as a hobbyist with my students. But if I wanted to fight again, or even just go hard or compete jiu-jitsu, that a good whizzer may just take it out of socket.
Pull it right out, man.
Yeah. So there wasn't really a question. All right. And, like, I don't really run from surgery. This will be number 7. So it's like, let's just do it, Yeah,
I'm going through this ACL meniscus recovery right now, but part of the business, man.
Yeah.
I was excited. I was training, finally got my purple belt, and then like 2 weeks later I tore it up, and
it's always like
8
that.
months now, man. So
the most and then when you're on the mat, you're going to feel like such a turd of a purple belt.
I bet.
Like, and you will be a turd of a purple belt. Like, that's the way it is, like, these things happen at the most inopportune times. But it pushed back me coming back to fighting. I do want to fight again. I have never retired. People ask me that all the time. You're going to go back? I'm like, I never left. Like, I'm taking a break. Go find one interview where I said I'm retired. It never happened. So I'm not active. It's been 2 years.
Right.
It will be 2 years in December since I fought. But I just wanted to get this place going because it's something I was not happy fighting. I was not happy training. And I've been wanting to do this, and I felt like I was just putting all my effort into something that I was not passionate about at the time, and something that I was passionate about, which is this, I wanted to do, kept getting sidelined, and I was getting frustrated with it. So I finally said, okay, now's the time to take a break. I drained myself mentally, physically, emotionally. I was so spent that I needed to take a break. Otherwise, the next fight would have been much worse. I would probably got knocked out and then knocked out again. It was like, what are you doing? You don't even want to do it.
Well, I think that's something as a martial artist that you're very aware of your body, and you're very connected with how you feel. And some people overlook that. That's when they get knocked out and injured. And it's definitely a quality that you have to recognize that and be like, hey, that's a hard thing for people to just acknowledge what they're going through and say, hey, I need to take a step back right now.
Yeah. and it was a job and I wasn't happy with it. And so I took a step back, and I couldn't be happier with like my students and my academy and how it's going thus far. I mean, I'm
Right.
super fortunate, very fortunate.
And right before you stopped too, I know you had a couple of, bad shakes with cards getting canceled and,
Yeah, UFC was kind of like not treating me like somebody who had been fighting hard for
Mhm.
them for a decade, you know. So we worked it all out, I guess. Um, and I'm happy now, man. I'm
So,
super chill, but I want to come back to fighting, and just looks like now it'll be 2019.
okay. So jumping off of fighting for a second, I have twin girls that are turning 12 next month. I know you're a father, so tell me about how that impacted your life.
Yeah, he was born 5.5 weeks premature.
Oh,
While I
wow.
was in the middle of a camp, I got there 45 minutes before he was born. I got one of those flights with Delta or somebody that like they were sold out, but they basically kicked somebody off the thing, and they took like $100 for the flight, something super cheap, And I got there just in the nick of time. My homie Bubby picked me up at the airport and hauled butt to get me there on time, and it was just it was cool, like I was happy to pull him out, and cut his umbilical cord, and I was just like, that's right, I'm your dad, this is going down, but like at the same time, he had to go to the NICU.
Mm.
It was very stressful, especially on my girlfriend Jera, very stressful, and I couldn't leave her, but I was trained to fight Holloway. I had no business taking 3 weeks out to stay in a hospital and stay at home to make sure that she was good. I could not cancel the fight. I could, sure, you can always do it, but
Mm.
it's like I had just gone 13 months without fighting. I had broke my hand in the fight before, and then in training for Conor McGregor, I snapped my thumb. It was horrible, and I couldn't make a closed fist, for like months. I had to be casted, and so it was the time to fight, and that was it. I was drained thin in the bank account department.
Hmm.
So it's like,
So yeah, you felt like you had to take it.
well, I had to, or I had to go take
Hmm.
out a bank loan.
Hmm.
What are you gonna do? You're
Yeah,
gonna fight,
you're gonna fight. Yeah, you do what you do
So
best, man.
I went back, got messed up, training for that fight, and didn't. I just didn't train for that fight at all. I did the weight cutting week. That was the most training that I did in that whole camp,
Mm.
and so made weight, fought him, and then after that, I got to enjoy being a dad a little bit more, and
Mhm.
it's awesome. I think that's what's kind of making me adding to me not being happy with fighting too. Is like I was dedicating my life to fighting and leaving and going to South Florida for training camps and having injuries and having fights canceled, and these things were happening, and I was putting months and months and months, and the juice was not worth the squeeze. If I was like
Mm.
winning, making all this good money, making of the night bonuses in this period, then I probably would have said it was worth it. But
Hmm.
like I missed out on a year of my kid's life.
Man.
It wasn't straight, but that's still a whole year that I did not see my kid, and he was only 2. He was 2 years old, and I missed a year. And
That's got to
like,
weigh on. It's got to weigh on you, and it's got to be tough for your girlfriend as well, not having you around with a. I know what
and
it's like having a young one in the house.
it
So.
was tough on her, which made it tough on me. So
Hmm.
I'm feeling everything she's feeling, you know, and it just, like I said, juice wasn't worth the squeeze. So I kind of had to. That was adding to it. So I wanted to open a school. I was not passionate about the training that I was doing. I wasn't passionate about who I was fighting for. I wasn't happy with the money I was making, and I just needed to take the break. And now it's like I've been getting to spend all this time with my son, and
Hmm.
I'm just over spoiled. And it's so
And
nice
how
right
old
now.
is your son now?
3.5.
Okay. It's a great age, man. Three,
Yeah.
3, 4 years old is when it starts to get even more fun because they could communicate to you more and
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
get to hang
Absolutely.
out with your little buddies, not just like making noises. You're like, why are you crying? You know what I mean? You get
Yeah.
that bonding time, man. That's
Yeah.
incredible.
It's great.
Is he going to get involved with training soon or?
We have a 4 to 6-year-old program.
Mm-hmm.
I think my son's a little immature.
Mm-hmm.
But he'll train. I mean, like I'm going to be very cautious about putting him in striking at first. Um, it's not that I don't want him to be an MMA fighter. I want him to do what makes him happy, but I'm not grooming him to be an MMA fighter. I want him to train jiu-jitsu. I want him to learn all the benefits that martial arts can provide a child,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not pushing him in any kind of direction.
Right. Yeah, no, that's the best approach. You introduce it to him, you expose it to him. I'm sure he's going to be growing up at your school,
Yeah.
and seeing everyone, and I'm sure he'll express interest. Especially, my girls trained for a little bit, but then they decided that dance was their thing, and they're dancing. Talk about expensive. Holy crap, dance
Yeah.
is
When people
unreal.
talk about
Oh my god,
jiu-jitsu is not expensive compared to gymnastics or dance or
no.
anything like this, or traveling softball or baseball. Man, parents are spending like $6,000 and up a year on these types of things, and jiu-jitsu is not expensive. Not when you
No.
compare it to that.
100%. And somehow, though, I go to competitions with the girls, thousands of girls, and I'm like, this industry is just ginormous. But I mean, they trained with me for a few years. They got some. I'm hoping now that they're getting into that tween age, that I could give them a little bit more. Just to they're in middle school now, and they're going to start getting into boys and all that. I just want to make sure they're able to protect themselves at least. You know what I mean?
Right.
But doing your school now and kicking it off. I mean, that's something that you put off for so long. I mean, does it feel like a job to you? I mean, I know I have my days where it's work, but I mean, I feel blessed every day that I walk through the door and I'm able to do something that I absolutely love. So what's it been like for you, man?
Yeah. It was a lot of, man, like, it's not hard work.
Mm-hmm.
It's just long work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even like to call it work. It takes a lot of tedious, time-consuming effort to do getting the school started. You remember that? Yeah. But like, man, like I see people say hard work all the time. It's like, it's nothing compared to what I was doing for the past 15 years of my life. Like the hard wrestling, sparring, skill work sessions, strength and conditioning sessions. And there's mental toll, there's physical toll, there's the toll of being a UFC fighter. Like the pay, the making that little bit of money go along. Like these are things that are hard. Mm-hmm. Like being at the school 12 hours a day, every day is not hard. Mm-hmm. It's just long.
Right.
So but there are days, where I'm like, I wish I was not doing this administrative type of work.
Right. No, I agree with you. It's when you step foot on the mat where it's not work at all, I feel.
Right. And
it's
then
all the computer shit, And
then there's the days where maybe I don't have, like I said, I'm not in Atlanta. I'm not near Atlanta. So I don't have black belts. I don't have brown belts. I don't have purple belts. I don't have a plethora of any color of belt except for white to choose from.
To help you out.
So I lack support personnel. So sometimes I'll teach from 4:30 to 9 p.m. Mm-hmm. And that's the closest thing to hard.
Oh yeah.
And that's not even hard. Like, but for some reason, my body hurts more from teaching 4.5 hours straight than it does from teaching 2 hours and training 2 hours.
Right.
It's like training kind of releases stuff in your body and gets blood flow into these things. But like standing still or sitting or just moving or talking about jiu-jitsu for long periods of time, like today's my long day, dude. I got a 4:30. I've got a 5:30. I've got a 6:30. And I've got a 7:30.
Yeah, man. I know what it's like, man.
So, and I'm a year in, and I want help. I pay really good money to my instructors. But I need instructors. I need to be able to have access to more people, You think that like if you're paying good, it would be easy to find help. And that's not the case.
No. Like
there's people that literally they don't want to teach, and that's okay too. If I'm in a military town, so I've got guys that came from somewhere else. That's how they are high ranked in jiu-jitsu, and they have a full-time job. They have families. Their family time is important to them, and they like to be able to, they would rather pay me
to
come and go as they please than say for sure they will be there on that Tuesday and that Thursday for 45 minutes.
Well,
And
not everybody.
I don't blame them either. I don't blame them for that either. You know, it's like, I like that freedom as well, you know?
Yeah.
So, but
not everyone that's a practitioner is also a good teacher. And not everyone that's a really good teacher is a good practitioner.
Right.
I mean, you happen to be someone that can do both.
Right.
You know, I try to aim for the same, but I've met plenty of people that are killers on the mat and can't teach a class to save their life, and vice versa. So
yeah.
It's hard to find them.
And I'm starting to get some helpers for my kids program, and I'm grooming them to take over, not the kids program, but the beginner kids program, which is all I have right now. But here pretty soon, in the next 6 months to 1 year, I will have students graduating to like the gray black, and I will make an intermediate kids program. And then I will always like be focused more on the advanced, and I will be designing the curriculum for all the beginners. Like everything will be my design, but I'll start to get some support help.
It's when it helps you, because I mean, as the business owner, you do have to jump between the teaching and the running and the marketing and the growing of the school. And I opened here 4 months after my twins were born. So I had 4-month-old twin daughters. I had a school where I was the only instructor at. So it was about 1.5 years, 2 years before I even got someone that could help with warm-ups. It's tough, man. So having the help, it's different when you have to teach every class. As opposed to saying, I want to teach every single class tonight. Like, hey, I know you could help me, but I feel like teaching that class. That's different than when you know you have to because you have no help. So that's coming around the corner for you, and it's definitely nice to have that flexibility. Like, I've been injured the last 3 weeks, and everyone stepped up and has been helping me because I got a surgery recovery. So it's nice to be here 12 years later and be like, man, I'm glad this happened now, and not when I first opened. The timing worked out.
So Micah, he's just here temporarily. Like he had neck surgery and artificial disc replacement. So he has been here just recovering until he can take the next step for his martial arts journey in life and go back to fighting. But so he's only here through the end of this year, but naturally he just got cleared to start training, and I tore my shoulder and need surgery. But so I'm lucky to have him right now to help me next week, because I'll be going in South Florida to get my surgery and stay for the week. But I tell my students right now, you better be coming to as many of his classes as you can, because he will be gone, and you guys that squandered that will wish that you had gotten that extra
chance to train with him.
Yeah. Right. So, but yeah, I feel you on like the wanting to teach every class, and
having to.
It was like, it was easier to want to teach 2 classes, because when I opened first, I was like, I will have a kids program, but let me start with and find out what can I manage. So I started 5 days a week, but I had just a couple classes every night. And then I added morning classes for adults. Then I added a kids program 2 days a week. And then I split the age groups, and then I added a striking class for them. And now here I am 5 days a week,
Yeah.
And we're doing it, man. Like,
but that's awesome. And you're only adding the classes because you're growing, and that's a sign of your business expanding. And that's exactly what you need to be doing.
And I the spot that I'm in, it's not a lot of space. So I have to have a lot of classes to accommodate a lot of people,
Sure.
So I'm ready to get into a big spot, so that way I can have more mat space. Take it to that next level. I'm very happy with the 130 students that I do have, but the first goal that I made for myself was 150 and 250. And I want less than a year to go from 150 to 250. I think that if I can get into a bigger spot, like, it'll happen like that.
Absolutely. 100%.
And I can add like those fitness classes we were talking about earlier, like the fitness kickboxing, or a program like Cage Fitness or something like this. Like, I could just be exposing myself to that many more people.
Absolutely, man. I think that doing one thing that you love, but also now learning, 2 years into it, almost the business side of it, it becomes a really exciting, like, new journey that you're on. So you've been pursuing your excellence as as a jiu-jitsu practitioner and as a fighter. And now you're becoming an entrepreneur as well and setting those goals for yourself. And I think it sounds like you're on absolutely the right track, man. So I wish you the best of luck with that. I wanted to at least give you a shout out. Can you tell everyone a little bit about your online training curriculum as well? If they visit themmaschool.com,
that's right.
What are they going to find on there, man?
That's a project between myself and Brandon McCatherine, BMAC. He's the owner of 10th Planet Decatur in Alabama. Okay. Phenomenal martial artist, insane, just top pressure. When you think about 10th Planet, what do we think? We think about these
rubber guard and everything. Yeah.
Rubbery hipsters.
Yeah.
Dude, he's awesome at rubber guard. He's awesome at foot locks. He's awesome at top pressure. And his overall outlook and mindset is just awesome. And he has his own individual website. But if you sign up with themmaschool.com, which is like our partnership that we have with that, you have stuff that he does only for that site, and you get access to his site as well, which is just all no-gi. But with the mmaschool.com, you'll have me talking about gi, no-gi, no-gi for MMA. You've got boxing and kickboxing techniques. You've got cage and wall work. So you get a little bit of everything. It's $20 a month, and I forget what it is if you want to do a paid in full for the year.
That's
but
awesome. You
can cancel at any time. So we also
month
have
to month, no year agreements.
Yeah, nothing like that. And you can go to the MMA School at the MMA School for our Instagram, and you can see little like snippets of the videos that we have together on there, and that can kind of make up your mind to see if like maybe you just want to sign up for a month or sign up for the month and check it out. It's got a lot of stuff. I'm going to be out for just a little while with my shoulder. So sure. If you're listening to this and you are already a subscriber, just please be patient with me. Because when I come back, I'm going to just flood it. I'm going to be so like pent up, not being able to do anything with my arm in a sling.
That sounds
I'm going to have an MMA School notepad, and I'm just going to be writing all the stuff to be going over during the day. So I'll be like a lot of people, they'll just film their classes, and I think that's great. That's making the maximum use of your time. I don't do it. I do it like in a instructional type of environment. Right. There's the mats are empty except for me, the video person, and the uki. So I will be doing that specifically with full explanation for the person that's watching, because I know that everybody doesn't have access to jiu-jitsu black belts. Everybody doesn't have access to a guy who devoted their life 15 years, who fought in the UFC for 10 years and 20 fights, So I'm trying to give the stuff that I know with full details. I try not to hold back, And it's kind of like I wanted a one-stop shop. Mm-hmm. There are guys far better than me at jiu-jitsu that have jiu-jitsu only sites and Muay Thai sites and wrestling sites.
Right.
Go to those places. Go check them out. I subscribe to MG in Action.
Oh, yeah. It's a great site.
I love Marcelo,
Yeah.
And I don't even use it as often as I should, but I just like to give him my money. Like he's just an awesome guy.
Yes.
So if you need help in one of these areas, first off, yeah, do come to my place. But man, go to just a jiu-jitsu site. But like, I think that if you are an MMA fighter, or you're intrigued about being an MMA fighter, or you're a jiu-jitsu guy and you're getting into combat jiu-jitsu, which I think is going to be huge. I break things down, and I do a pretty good job of it. I think that that's like the one thing that I'm really good at, is incorporating strikes with the jiu-jitsu from the top and from the bottom on how to mix these compartmentalized martial arts together.
Well, I would add a testimonial to that, because we were lucky enough to have you up to the school for a seminar here, and I've had a chance, being a lifetime martial artist, I have taken classes from so many different people, and some seminars you go to become like an encyclopedia dump of technique, we're an hour into it. You don't even remember what you did, 5 moves ago. You had the ability of breaking things down and creating a chain of techniques that kept coming back to the beginning, and you were able to consistently get the reps to learn the sequence where you could leave the seminar and really understand what was going on and to break it down. And you don't walk onto the mat with some guys that make it up to the higher levels, have this aura or ego to them. You didn't feel that at all. I mean, everyone was on the mat that had a chance to work with you. It was like they were your own students, and you have a very good ability to really break things down and deliver it in a way. Because again, not everyone can teach well. So I definitely would, if you hadn't had a chance to train with Cole yet, I would check it out, because we had and I'd love to have you back. Phenomenal experience when you were up here, man. Especially now as a purple, I want to expand the various types of guards, get deeper into the open and deli heave and now that my basics are getting stronger, I need to, try to figure out how do I progress to that next level. So
I was just about to bring that up too. So I got the MMA school. I've been on a seminar run here of late. I mean, I think I did like 7 seminars this year.
Wow.
And now I'm going to have to stop for a while, but I will be doing another one at the end of September. My surgeon says I'll be able to teach, deal with body weight and stuff by then. But if you're interested in bringing me in, I'm open to it. You can find me on my Instagram at Cole Miller Martial Arts. And we'll find a way to link up and bring me to you. And I really enjoy showing what you were just talking about. Deli Hiva guard for the gi is one of my specialties. Deep half, striking for MMA, or just a generic guard for MMA. That's another one that I do pretty well. And I'm actually going to be doing a digital instructional on how to do the guard for MMA here pretty soon. But if you are a member for the MMA school, you already know that I have, not only do I put techniques, I post all of my seminars, every single one. All of them are also on that site. So you get full access to that too. And I have one that I did for the guard on MMA. And I think that it's easy to get caught up in how complicated you think it is jiu-jitsu is already complicated enough, right? And then you start adding strikes to it and these things in your face and you're letting go and you got to block all this. I think it's easy to see how that might be complicated. I think I do a pretty okay job at breaking it down and actually making it easier than just jiu-jitsu is.
Right.
So go check that out, and please give me some feedback. I'm open to feedback. You can find me on Facebook or my Instagram. Tell me what you thought about it. And I do take constructive criticism. If you think that something was not good or not explained well, or you'd like to see just something else explained, I'm happy to do it.
I mean, it's an incredible value that you're offering, all of that and your seminars for $20 a month. So, I mean, even for people that have experience.
Brandon McCaffrey stuff. Don't forget, BDAC stuff is on there too.
Huge value. And how many people are going to see this and get exposed to martial arts and maybe find, if they're not in Georgia, find a spot, in their town, and you might inspire, the next champions that are out there. And they could find you as well if they're in your school's in Bon Air, Georgia. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
And they could find you at attwarnerrobbins.com as well. And then just real quick to wrap a couple things up. I know you mentioned that, you've been taking a hiatus, focusing on being a dad, on your school. You mentioned the possibility of coming back in 2019. So if you do that, what's your plan, if you have any? What's the goal? Are you coming back at 145? Do you have a fight in mind, or is there hey, I'm going to do 3-4 fights and then retire and just do my business? Or what's the plan, if you have any?
I'm just going to enjoy training. To be fair, like I said, it was starting to be like work. I wasn't really passionate in the martial arts I was training and how I was doing it. I felt like I was kind of being coached to conform into the MMA blueprint, if you will. Like there's like a method of fighting, like you have to do it like this. And I was kind of getting away from what I actually like to do. I was becoming like a MMA mold. And I don't want to be that. I wasn't happy doing it. And I felt like I was almost being conformed to or pushed to focus more on all of my opponent's strengths and keep them away instead of me just playing what I love to do, what I enjoy to do. So when I come back, I'm going to be doing the martial arts I like to do. We'll start with training like that. And then I'll put together a camp and I'll find a fight most likely at 55. I'm
Okay.
I'm still small right now. I'm like 161 pounds, 162. But when I come back, I'll be strength training because 145 is not happening. And this USADA era, no IV. I'm starting to get older. I'm honestly, the weight is coming off easier. I have like a system. I always have a system. And the weight's coming off for my last fight easier than it's ever come off. I mean, like I have no problem making the weight. It's just how I feel the next day is
Right.
not so
Well, it'd
good.
be healthier for you also to only get to 155. And if it's an issue you've been seeing, even with like Max Holloway lately of, all these guys that are ending up in the hospital because they're approaching their weight cuts incorrectly. And
Right.
it's changing the whole, division around, you know what I mean?
So,
What's your take on where your division is out now? Because I know, I was curious from a fighter standpoint. There's always this controversy about people getting the ranking and the title shots based on effort and winning versus, who's talking the most smack and who's got the most face time on TV. So what's your take on that whole thing?
I think that you could clear this whole thing up by eliminating 3 rounds in 5 minutes and going to a 15-minute round or no rounds. But this
like
can't
old
happen.
Pride style, like the 10,
a 10 and a 5 or just a 1 15-minute round. I think that this would clear things up. I think that you'd see more finishes. I think that you'd find out who the best fighter was, and that it would be easier to find out who who was the higher ranked guy, or just go back to the old school way of doing it. No weight classes, no talent. But this isn't going to happen.
No.
So here's what you have to do. Accept that this is not martial arts. I had a long war. I didn't understand. Then I woke up one day and realized this isn't martial arts anymore. This is a sport. It's not even really a sport. It's sports entertainment. So for any fighters coming up, if you need to train martial arts, it's cool if you have a martial arts attitude, but you need to realize that what we are doing in that cage has nothing to do with martial arts. Like that's the people
got to draw the viewers in who's buying tickets.
The people that are making the money off of you, they don't care.
A rat's ass. Yeah, no, exactly.
They don't care about martial arts. They don't care about you. So make sure that you know those things. You are not cared about. Your martial arts is not cared about. What you can bring to the table is the only thing that they care. So it doesn't mean you got to talk trash, but you got to find some way that's unique to you. Be
market yourself. Yeah.
Be you times 1,000. And, that's the best way that I can say it. That's something that you got to know. And that's just the way it is.
I think it's a great spot to leave it, man. I look forward to, you talked about what it was like for you going down to American Top Team and being a fanboy. And I think I met you at a super show in Florida back in like 2008.
That was Orlando.
They had it in Orlando. And I remember being in that seminar, and I think Marcelo was there and Thiago Alves and you were there and Laborio was there. I was just like, oh my God. And then when I went to American Top Team in 2009 to start getting certified, it was just astonishing. And then to train this long and now to be here and just have a conversation with you was it's an awesome road from beginning to end. So
isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy? Like that journey when you think about like who you've been in the room with, and it's like, it's not like hero worshiping, but you got to think, man, like all the knowledge, all the stuff in the room, like those experiences that we've had, they're special, man. It's good to reflect on them.
It really is. I mean, even having the relationship that I have with Laborio and the time that we've spent on the phone, the car, podcast. I mean, there's times I'm like, he's talking to me and I'm like, this is like hanging out with like Bruce Lee or Chuck Norris.
Yeah. It is
a living legend that calls me a friend. I'm like, it's mind blowing, but normal at the same time. You know what I mean?
It's super humbling.
It's super humbling. It really is. Because you put people up on a pedestal and you realize these are also hard workers that are dedicated martial artists. You share a passion in mind, and maybe they just happen to follow a path that gave them a little bit more, recognition, whether it's from a championship or TV exposure. But we have this common thread that we all share, and this love and passion and dedication that we put in martial arts, we put in our business, we put in our family. And, it kind of then those situations, we're at a similar level, you know what I mean? So absolutely. It's really interesting to have had this experience over the last, 10 years to get to know you personally. And you know, I can't thank you enough for the opportunity to come onto the podcast and let me interview you a little bit. And I'm looking forward. Like I said, I was following you for a long time before I knew you, so I look forward to seeing you getting back out there if that's what you decide to do, whatever you decide to do. Just following you and seeing your school grow from a distance has been awesome to see as well. And I'm you know, from a business standpoint, always here to talk to you if you ever want to, you know.
Well, thank you.
Discuss business.
I'm going to need some guidance, so I will be reaching out to you.
Absolutely, man. So there was actually one question I wrote down, and I do this whole thing like, you know, totally raw without notes, but I never knew who gave you your nickname Magrinho. Did that come from Bahumpa, Laborio? Laborio?
Like, because first off, Laborio is really bad with names. He's very bad with names. He called one of my friends Chris for like a year. His name is not Chris. It don't start with a C. Don't start with a. His name is Lindsay. Okay, but that's just the way that he's a faces guy. So I think it's very Magrinho means skinny. In case you guys didn't know in Portuguese, so it's like I'm just some guy. I'm some low level, non-ranked white belt at the time, and then I got my blue belt from him later. Sort of. That's a funny story too. How I got my blue belt. But he just Magrinho. That's just what it is. Because like you
skinny guy. Yeah.
Skinny, okay, Magrinho. There you go. So it's not any kind of crazy story how it happened. It was like one day sparring in Bloqueo, he needed me to come over to him. He's like, Magrinho. And then they're like, hey, Cole, Lebo wants you. So that's how I got it.
No, but you didn't get your black belt under Laborio. You got him under Marcus D'Amata. Is that right?
Yeah. So after Lebo gave me the blue, the purple, and the brown. But after I got my purple from Lebo, I started training primarily with Pahumpa. And that's because that was when Bella was born, and she was born blind, and he stepped away from the pro team. So, I mean, right after I got the purple belt, I was really training a lot with Pampinha. And I trained with him for a long time. And Lebo gave me the brown belt, even though I was primarily training with Pahumpa still, because Lebo still had a good grip on things still going on at the academy. He was still trying to make as much as he could, but he was not teaching the classes very much. He was still doing like the ceremonies, and he made sure that he was a constant face at the school. But he just couldn't do the work with the pro team like he wanted because his family needed him to be focused on it. So that's when I started training primarily with Pahumpa, and I got the black belt from Pahumpa, but I got it at the main academy, and Lebo gave a very nice speech. One of those moments I'll just never forget. But Pahumpa tied the belt, threw me, and then Lebo threw me, and then I went on down the line about 27 more times.
What a great experience, man. I can't wait. I mean, it's an ultimate goal. If my body holds up to get my second black belt one day, man.
You'll do it.
I look forward to it, man. And I look forward to you getting through your surgery and recovering. And then I'd love to come down there, or hopefully we'll bring you back up here soon and get a chance to train again together. Before we take off, is there anything that you'd like to leave people with that you want them to know about you, or anything along those lines?
No, just if you're training and you're trying to be a fighter or just a competitor, just you got to have perseverance. You got to be able to push. And if I can say anything, start developing systems for your jiu-jitsu, systems for fighting. Try to work as smart as you can and preserve your body. And just always be sharpening. I'm anti-grind. Like, sharpen, don't grind. Work smart, don't work hard.
Exactly.
And forget trusting in the process. That means that you're doing it wrong. Trust in the systems, because systems are proven. They are always true. That's what makes them true. So start putting your effort and start to develop your game around systems instead of just learning random techniques. It's how you combine
them together. Yeah.
That makes them unique to you, makes them special to you, and makes world champions. So just
it sounds like you're taking that same philosophy and applying it towards your life and your business as well. And that's kind of what this podcast is about, man. Taking that same perseverance, and you know, life will knock you down and ground and pound you just like a martial arts fight would do. And you have to just kind of keep pushing and getting up every day and just trying your best, even when you're having those bad days. No one's perfect. I mean, they might look at someone like you that's made it up to the UFC and think they just see the limelight, they see the name recognition, they don't realize all the work, the struggle that you just went through in the last hour of talking to get to that level, to get to that point. And then sometimes to succeed, you decided you have to take a step back before you could hit that next level that you want. So, man, I look up to you, man. It's awesome to see where you've come, and I look forward to seeing what comes next for you, man. I just want to drop it one more time for everyone. They can catch you on Instagram at Cole Miller Martial Arts. They could sign up for the MMAschool.com and get some education as well. If they're in the Georgia area, they could look you up at attwarnerrobbins.com. I'll put this all in the show notes as well.
Cool.
And dude, thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming on the show. Be in touch. You got my info. Anything I could do to help out, I'm happy to, brother, man. So
awesome. Thank you.
Have a great day. And ladies and gentlemen, today's Life's Black Belt, Mr. Cole Miller. Thank you, sir.
Thank y'all for having me.